It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host, Smitty. Be sure to follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. You can also check us out on YouTube if you're not watching the show over there already. You can subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you never miss a video, and you never miss when we go live. That is going to be important for everybody that's watching this show probably, because a week from Thursday, we are going to be going live for the NFL draft. First round of the NFL draft, we're going to be watching the entire thing live with all of you, and Smitty and I are going to be joined by a few of our friends. If you've tuned in the years past, you'll see some familiar faces, but we're also going to have some giveaways during that live show, and make some predictions as well. But just tune in, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you get notified when we go live for that as well. And if you want to check out the listening platforms and follow us there, leave 5-star reviews there as well. We really appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. And also check out the description where you can see all of the links to our great sponsors. But yeah, big thing, it's crazy that the draft is a week away. I mean, I feel like this offseason is flying by. It always does. But yeah, we are going live night one of the draft. Be sure to tune in for that.
Yeah, excited about that. Excited about next week. We're also going to have a mock draft with some of our friends for the draft community that we'll be posting on the channel over here as well. So we're excited about that. So yeah, tons of content coming your guys' way. However, there won't be like a normal Steelers show next week. So with that being said, we got to get one more of these out. This is to be our final mock draft ahead of the NFL draft. So whatever we say on this show, that goes. We're going to be 100% correct in terms of our picks for the Steelers, and this will be set in stone for what the team does. No doubt about it. So we'll dive into this today.
Why Armand Khan wouldn't listen to us? Like Andy Weidel is probably just, he's going to be like SpongeBob, like, write that down.
Yeah, so. I'm assuming my guy Casey Weidel is probably listening to the podcast right now, putting down notes to give to his brother. But anyway, all right. So with that being said, before we dive into this, do you have any kind of thoughts about just like this? Because I'll be honest, I know part of this could be I haven't been as dialed in to the draft stuff this year. I had a lot of stuff going on in the month of March when I'm normally doing a lot of draft preparation, stuff like that. So I wasn't as dialed into the draft this year as in past years. But I feel the most removed that I've been from the draft stuff since I really started getting into this, because I don't know if it's just like the Steelers trying to throw us off the scent or what, but like their process here has been very interesting to me. Like I don't have as clear of an idea, not only about like the player, the position group that they're going to take in round one. Like if you would ask me at the Senior Bowl, defensive tackle, but then they don't bring Kenneth Grant or Walter Nolan in for pre-draft visits. Derek Harmon was here, but like that was big. Last year, pre-draft visits, 5 of the Steelers' 7 draft selections were pre-draft visits. So I don't know. So do you have any thoughts on just kind of like how we got here?
It's confusing to me. This whole draft process for 2025 has been for the Steelers, because like you mentioned, the Steelers kind of show their hand a little bit as far as like if you look at who they met with at the combine, who they bring in for top 30 visits, were they at the pro days, who was at the pro days. The Steelers are very evident of showing their hands if you look at the past drafts that we've had. And for everybody's expectations for the first round and a lot of the names that are circling around for the Steelers in the first round, you haven't gotten a ton of those names being brought in for those top 30 visits. Like the one that you mentioned, Derek Harmon, he feels like an obvious one that people are talking about. But the other two that you mentioned as well, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, those are two of the guys that we feel like are surefire could be picks for the Steelers in the first round and at the defensive tackle position that they haven't brought in. Now, does that mean that they couldn't draft those guys? No, like they still can, but it just seems odd considering the history of the Steelers and even some of the other positions like not Walter Nolan. We just talked about him. Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver. He's the one that we have talked about a ton. Now they were at the pro day for Ohio State, but they were going to be at the pro day regardless. They're definitely looking at Will Howard as well. So maybe they got to look there, but you'd think that they would bring him in as a potential, especially when they also brought in Matthew Golden, another first-round wide receiver expectation that's going to be having.
Matthew Golden's checked the boxes. Like, he's the one guy that has.
He has checked all of the boxes for the Steelers. And then someone like potential like Nick Emenwari from South Carolina, the safety, like they brought him in for a top 30 visit. That's going to be a first-round pick. Like, that's a position that we were not even talking about at the safety position for a first-rounder. Pretty much the entire process, it's always been wide receiver or defensive tackle for most people. I mean, quarterback's been talked about for the Steelers, and we've talked about that a lot. I don't expect a quarterback to be taken in the first round. I don't think there's a realistic option for them. Now, if Shedeur slides, would the Steelers try to make a move to get him? I mean, they did bring him in for a top 30 visit, which seemed interesting to me. Maybe they're just doing their due diligence on that, but I don't know that they're necessarily going to be available to take a quarterback, and nor do I think that they should be taking any of the quarterbacks that could come after the top 2 in the first round. And so with that said, the positions that they've brought in for some of these top 30 visits, based off where they're going to be taken in the draft expectation-wise, is interesting to me. And then the lack of just the names that have been surrounding the Steelers, or like who at least the fan base is interested in the first round, and they haven't been brought in for top 30 visits, is very intriguing. Like we talked about it before, especially with the defensive tackle position. Like before they brought in Derek Harmon, they weren't bringing in anybody that would be considered like an early round defensive tackle. It was all like mid to late round guys that they could be getting like depth wise. And maybe that's smart by them. Maybe that's somebody that they're going to get in the later rounds that could double dip at that position. And I wouldn't hate if they did that, but it just seems to me it's something that, like, this is a draft that, like, I feel like the Steelers need to hit on if they want to turn around faster than what they could be, considering the quarterback position. And so the fact that they're the lack of like the first round top 30 visits from like the expectation of who they're going to pick from the Steelers end, that's a little surprising to me. And considering the history of the Steelers and how much they stick to like the tradition of when they bring in a top 30 visit guy, that's typically who they roll with. Considering who they've done so far, it is a little bit surprising considering like the names being surrounded with them and who they've actually met with.
Well, Kevin Colbert, it was, if you're at the pro day, with Omar through 2 years, it looks like the pre-draft visit is really the box that like has to be checked for a first round pick. But when you look at just the interest across the board, we mentioned Matthew Golden because he checks the boxes across the board. In terms of Shedeur, I think they would consider it. Certainly if you fell to 21, I don't think that they would trade up to do it. I don't think that they feel like there's a player worth trading up for. Even like understanding like QB tax and the value of a quarterback and everything like that, I just haven't gotten the sense that they would do that. I think they would take him at 21 and feel pretty good about it, but I don't think that they would. I mean, I think not having a second round pick plays into that surely too, but also just like, I think their view is good player. He can certainly be part of a good offense and be somebody that operates it like a high level game manager, but I don't think he's a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Also, while we're on the topic, not a sponsor for the show, but I gotta give my guy Trevor a shout out for dropping this shirt off to me this week. My guy Trevor Anderson. This is his small business here that he's running. I'll link it down below. Even though he's not a sponsor, maybe he'll want to become a sponsor because he's getting a shout on here. I normally say no free ads, but we'll give Trevor a free ad. Double Diamond Auto Detailing, 518 Virginia Avenue in Rochester, PA. So if you're in the Beaver County area like myself and Trevor, he can certainly hook you up. And here's the catch. If you're in Beaver County, he'll even do free pickup and drop off available for the detailing if you are in Beaver County. Again, 518 Virginia Avenue, Rochester, PA. Hit him up. Facebook link will be down below. He even got his phone number on here, 724-709-5563. Hit him up. Hit Corey up. Double Diamond Auto Detailing. I mean, Tyler, you know me. I drive cars all the time. Tons of vehicles in my house.
Absolutely.
So no would trust nobody besides Trevor to detail all my cars that I have that are very real.
Yeah. Just a personal question on my part. Does he detail scooters?
Yes. I'm sure he will. I mean, hey, it'd probably be a great deal for him. I mean, not much work to do there and still getting paid to do it. So I'm assuming he would take on the project, but I can't say for sure.
Well, I just had to ask because unlike you, I'm not a big car guy. I'm a big scooter guy.
Electric scooters in particular. Anyways, all right. So we're like 10 minutes into this thing and we haven't started this mock draft yet. So we were given some.
I mean, we're just trying to be like the actual draft.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like Roger leading up to it before he finally gets on stage and announces the pick. But anyways,
like last year, speaking of our live, before we start, last year we started at 6:30 or 8 or 7:30 Eastern. And
last year you weren't here right away. You joined during.
That's true. I was in Europe.
Yeah.
But I believe last year you guys started at 7:30 Eastern for the first round, and a pick wasn't made until like 45 minutes later. So
yeah, we've kept moving it back. I think the first year that we did one, we started like an hour before the draft started, and it was like, man,
yeah, we're starting at draft time, knowing that a pick's not going to be announced for like 15 to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's dive into this because this will go much faster than the actual draft itself. I was scrolling down a little bit here. Let me get back to the top. Titans holding number 1 pick. We'll see if it's chalk as we expect here at the top. Cam Ward. Oh, okay. I mean, those are going to be swapped, I think, on draft night. I think Travis Hunter's 2 and Abdul Carter is 3, but same players. Will Johnson at 4, though. Very interesting. First running back at 6, Ashton Jeanty. Tet
going to the Raiders.
Tet McMillan with not as much of a slide. Oh, whoa. What the heck?
Shadur Sanders to the Cowboys. How about them boys?
What in the world happened? Is Omar Collins saying what's going on with Dak if this pick's made?
I guess so. Or maybe Prime is just in Jerry's ear.
What's funny is this was floated out there as like a thing, and it was like if Prime would have been hired as the Cowboys head coach, there was apparently some level of interest there. If that would have happened, this is a situation that people like actually were coming up with. Wow, I have not seen this yet in running simulations on here. I've seen very popular at 9 to the Saints. Sometimes the Colts will take him at 14. 18 at the Seahawks has been the floor. One time I got him to fall to 21.
I was going to say, what do you think the realistic floor for Shadur is? 21. Like, how real is the slide?
I think he could fall to 21. I don't think he'd go past there. But here's the thing that I will say about it is the people that are making it seem like it's a guaranteed thing where if he gets past the Saints, he gets to Pittsburgh because there's not another team they think will take a quarterback. I mean, yeah, if trades weren't allowed to happen, maybe. It's like the teams don't have to stay in the places that they currently hold. So it doesn't have to be a team currently slotted there that takes Shadur Sanders. A team like Cleveland, who picked at 2, didn't feel like he was worthy of taking him at 2, but would take him more like in the middle rounds. They could take him. The Giants, who picked at 3, same deal. They could come back into round 1. A team like the Rams, who picked behind the Steelers at 26, they need an heir apparent to Matthew Stafford. That certainly could make some sense to me. I've proposed that idea for Jackson Dart, but in this insert Shadur Sanders in that place. Yeah, that's probably the last one, I would say. But yeah, so like 3 teams picking behind the Steelers, I think makes sense to come back in or move up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that the Shadur slide is going to be overstated until draft night. I don't think he's going to go down as far.
Again, I think it's possible
a week before. Yeah, sure.
I'm not going to.
It is technically possible. Like if I had to make a prediction, I don't necessarily know what team. Like I still think he's going to be a top 15 pick.
Yeah, I agree. And he was in this case too. Just not at all the team that we would have expected. I like this move for Denver. I wonder what they had to give up to move to 13 though. A second round pick. 20 and 51 to move it to 13 to get Matthew Golden. All right, let's resume. Keep going. That Shador's pick.
That would be good for Denver.
It throws off.
Bo Nick doesn't really have much to throw to.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about Cortland Sutton. They still haven't like really figured out the whole long-term contract thing. And I like Golden a lot on the outside. So,
with the Ravens.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like trading with the Ravens, but getting a second-round pick back and not giving up anything additional is certainly enticing. Let's go through. Okay, this happens here too, but that's a lot later, right? I think theirs was it's a lot.
Yeah,
later.
that's a lot later. 20 picks later, 2 picks earlier in the first.
Oh, that's in the third round.
To the third.
Oh, okay. So 31 and 51 as opposed to 27 and 59. So 4 picks. So moving back 10 spots here, getting 51 those opposed to 59. Let's look at the board though, along with this.
Yeah, I feel like which one I would want to take.
This isn't a great board. Like this is definitely a trade back board to me. I mean, you look at the guys that are at the top here. Other like Walter Nolan, obviously, but he wasn't in for it. I guess that's another part of this. Do we want to try to blend what we would do and predictability, or
I think that's probably the best case scenario of what we should do, because the first draft that we did was our own. Like our first draft that we did was just our own, like what we would do, and then the second draft we kind of tried to stay true to what we think the Steelers would do. It's probably best that we kind of blend the two for this final one.
Well, and to be honest, with what we were talking about at the beginning, it's not like we have a great idea of what the Steelers are going to do.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, considering who's available still, I mean, I'm assuming that Harmon got taken higher. Where is he?
17.
Kansas City.
He's actually
traded up to take him. So, I mean, and Nick Amenwori is also taken. That's another guy that they brought in for a top 30 visit. So, if you're just going by the top 30 visit board, I think everybody's gone. That would be a realistic option in the first round here. So now it's more so picking position.
This is a trade down spot for me. I think the Steelers want to trade down. I think the question is going to be, can they find that partner? Well, in this case, we did. Like, I think that's the big part, because I think you look at those 30s where it's hard to find that first round pick. It's easy to find a lot of guys that are going to go on day 2. So I think like their interest in round 2 guys screams to me they want a round 2 pick. How they get that round 2 pick? Is it a trade down? Is it a George Pickens trade? I don't know, but I think they want a second round pick. This is how we acquire that. I think that moving down here makes a ton of sense. In reality, it's just about, can the Steelers – I don't think the Steelers get this type of value in the trade back in real life on draft night. I think there's be a ton of teams willing to trade back and not teams willing to trade up, but we got teams calling here on the board for us.
And that's why – so bring up the trades real quick. That's why I think that when you're looking at the trades, first off, yeah, that one's just not going to happen. That's not happening. There's no. It's
a worse pick in both rounds than either one, but yeah, and realistic. Okay, I guess if we're trying to blend realism, yeah, they're not trading with the Ravens, but at the same time, 27 and 59 is pretty good value. Like it's a 4 pick difference on the front end, and 8 pick difference on the back end.
So if we're blending realism, I think I would accept the Dolphins trade. Now, I know moving down 10 spots is worse than moving down, 6 spots if you're trading with the Ravens, but they're just not going to trade with the Ravens. It's not going to happen. And based off of who they could take, guys that they'd be interested in, I mean, there's still guys that are in the 30s that could still be there at 31 that I would feel very comfortable with the Steelers taking. Plus, you get that number 151 pick.
Can we find 9 guys here that would be our board? Walter Nolan, Emeka Egbuka, Amarian Hampton. Like I don't necessarily want to.
Like I think for the guys that are available, Amarian Hampton. I think if you're just picking 9 guys, I'd throw Tyleik Williams in there.
Okay.
And then
I mean, do we guys consider the quarterbacks because they are?
I'm not considering Jackson Dart, but I would consider Jalen Milroe.
Okay.
Mainly based off of Steelers' preference. Kenneth Grant for sure. Guys.
Watts and Morrison. Interest in both.
Yeah.
Trey Amos.
Trey Amos, who they also brought in for a top 30.
But yeah. Might be early for
I mean, there's guys, and I think that Dolphins trade makes a ton of sense. you recoup that second round pick, one pick higher than you actually had it. So I think that would be the best case scenario.
Okay. All right. We're going to accept the Dolphins deal. Who are the Dolphins coming up for? Tyler Booker.
Got
okay, let me just pause this just to say, okay, Walter Nolan just went. They came back up again. Look at this activity from the Dolphins so far here on draft night. That was the first player that's come off the board since we traded that like would even have been in consideration. These other ones we would not have considered. Booker, Walker, Simmons, Campbell. So
I agree.
Tyleik Williams to the Ravens.
Williams gone to the Ravens.
Oh.
Emeka Egbuka to the Saints. And I feel like at this point, we're making a pick. I don't think we're trading back again.
Yeah, I just want to keep that just to – what was the steal? 40 and a second next year. Okay. Yeah, I mean – yeah, they wouldn't do this. Like, not even in consideration. I think the big thing for me why I was so adamant about making that deal is I think it's very clear the Steelers want that second round pick back. I don't think that they're going to move down multiple times before taking a player. So the short list here, I'm just going to say it because I think it would be in consideration. Jackson Dart, I think, would be. I don't think he should be on the board for them to even have to decide this, but I think that there is interest there. Omari Hampton, I mean, I've heard some really bad things in regards to feelings towards Luther Burden. I don't think he's is high on a lot. I think he like probably half the teams probably have him as a top 3 receiver in this class, and half the teams probably don't have him on the board. Like
that's
very
crazy.
Polarizing in terms of the it's a character thing, not necessarily.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not saying it's crazy that the teams like feel that way, but it's just the polar opposites.
Yeah. Milrow.
I think if Dart's in play, Milrow wouldn't be in play here.
Yeah. Siobhan Revel's very interesting to me because he's like a slam dunk first round pick if it was just after 2023. But obviously the injury last year. Kenneth Grant still on the board. The Notre Dame guys. Travion Henderson was in for a third. He was the last one, pre-draft visit. All right, I think we're going further down than we need to. Short list for me here would probably be Hampton, and this is like combining reality and what I would want them to do. I would say it's probably Hampton, Kenneth Grant. Who's even my third guy there? It's really those two. I mean, I guess I'll throw Revel in there. I think Revel's a really good player, assuming they can come back from injury and be the same type of player. I really want to say Xavier Watts. I love. I don't think that they would do that. I know the interest in Manowari, but he can play like third safety, play in the box. Watts would be more of the Minkah Fitzpatrick replacement. The other guy would be, assuming you can't extend Deshaun Elliott after this year.
Okay. So my 3 actually in order right now would be Kenneth Grant, Omarion Hampton, and Jalen Milrow. There's just Jalen Milrow is to me is kind of blending the Steelers' interest. Like if they're going to take a quarterback, take a risk on a quarterback, he could be the one that like if you tap into the athleticism and you find the diamond in the rough, able to figure it out at the pros, that could work out. I think that they would take him before Jackson Dart. But like you, I think that someone's going to take a shot on Jackson Dart back into the first round. But Kenneth Grant to me is the one that would be first here because he's someone that I'm talking about the Steelers should consider to be taking at 21. So if we're at 31 and taking him, I still think that that's the pick. I don't know why he is 38 on this big board. I feel like he should be in the 20s, but
there's some conversation, not saying I necessarily agree with it, but there's some conversation about him, teams fearing he's only a 2-down player, which I guess would be the reason why. And these rankings are obviously going to be, I don't know that these are, like, I think their board is a lot of what they're hearing. Like, I don't know how much of it is legitimately their ranking. So I think it's a lot of where they believe players are going to go. What's going off the board? Let's just take a look. Brian Hampton's still there.
They must not have seen that clip of Kenneth Grant running down Caton Allen, by the way.
I know.
Always got speed.
Quinshon, Jalen Royals, Maxwell Harrison, Jaden Higgins is still there. So we got the defensive lineman, running back or receiver, which seemed to make a lot of sense here. To make the case for corner, I suppose. But yeah, I would say my short list here is Hampton. I mean, if you're picking a running back, it's easily Hampton. So I don't know that it makes sense to even bring up Caleb Johnson or Quinshon Judkins. So I guess my short list here would be Hampton, Hairston, and Jaden Higgins, who I'm not sure why he's 64th when you have Jalen Royals, who I really like at 57. I would not have him ahead of Jaden Higgins.
Who was your other one besides Hampton and Higgins?
Maxwell Harrison, the corner out of Kentucky.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're going off the top 30 visits and want to blend those two, they did have a top 30 with Hampton, both. And they also did have a top 30 with Higgins.
Yeah, both.
So either of those guys would be options. They did not have a top 30 with Maxwell.
No.
So I like the two picks that you're leaning, and in this case, if the board played out this way, I feel like the card would be Hampton, and it'd be run up so fast that
yeah, he ain't gonna be here. I mean, he's being talked about like not giving the comp in terms of who he is as a player, but the comp in terms of where he could go. Maybe he's the Jahmyr Gibbs to Bijan Robinson, where like we all knew Bijan was going to go high. Jahmyr Gibbs, like we were kind of surprised he went top dozen picks. Maybe Hampton's like the same thing. Maybe he goes much earlier than we expect, but this is insane value to me, and I don't even think about it. This trade, pretty good value moving back just 2 spots. But Chicago, if they didn't take they missed out on Genty in the first round. I would be worried Hampton's the player they're coming up here for.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And looking at who you have in your running back room, I feel like all of us are pretty much expecting the Steelers to be moving on from Cordero Patterson, considering that you signed a younger version of him in Kenneth Gainwell. And you would think that they're still going to add a running back relatively high in the draft, and recouping that second-round pick is a good option to do it, especially if the board played out this way. So if I'm picking a Marion Hampton as the pick, don't think he's actually going to be there on draft night, but in this particular draft, he's there, and I'd take him.
All right, there it is. Like if I felt like the Bears weren't coming up for Hampton, I'd make that trade. But yeah, I mean they went running back. So
Caleb Johnson, yep.
Were they going to come up for Johnson, or was it going to be Hampton but had to settle for Johnson? You can decide. But oh man,
Kyle Williams went to the Lions.
Yeah, and Kyle Williams is a guy I liked at 83, but the Steelers haven't shown a ton of interest, so maybe it's not a pick that we can make anyway. Ayo Maynard, yeah, here the run on receivers is taking place here in round 3. My God, Jack Betch. I just want to go through. Tez Johnson's not somebody I would have wanted anyway, but let's just go through and look at this receiver run, because receiver was kind of what I've been penciling in for this pick. But my goodness, what happened after we made our pick here? Let's go back and look. So we take Hampton, and then we see Royals 1, Higgins 2, Williams 3, Ayomaner 4, Savion Williams kind of 4.5 or 5. And then Jack Betch. And then, Tez Johnson as well. 7 receivers off the board since our last pick. That's crazy. So that was where the run happened. I don't feel bad about picking Hampton, though, in that spot, just because of that. Now it becomes more of a conversation, though. I mean, what's even there at receiver if that's the direction we wanted to go? Oh, man. Yeah, this ain't good value.
Yeah, I think looking at this board,
I think Dante Thornton's the best player here in terms of fit for what the Steelers need, at least.
Right.
Man, Isaiah Bond, God. Yeah, so I'm not sure that receiver's the direction we go here. I think that's maybe we wait even a little bit longer. So then the conversation becomes, do we take our quarterback, Tyler Shock, who they've shown interest in? Do we double dip at D tackle? They would not double dip at running back.
Would they look corner or safety here?
Maybe. Zy Alexander, very interesting. Certainly has the tools to be a guy. Kobe Bryant still on the board. Safety-wise, to me, Jalen Reed's the best player. I like Jonas Sanker. I like Malachi Moore, but Jalen Reed I like better. Not a great board for us, to be honest with you. Short list here again, trying to throw some realism in here. I think Tyler Shuck's certainly up there.
Do you think they like Shuck more than Howard?
Ooh. I think they universally like Howard. Like, if you were averaging it out, I think it's probably Howard. Arthur Smith loves Shuck. And it makes sense with what he's good at.
Mm-hmm. How concerned do you think the Steelers would be about like the injury history and why he's played so long in college? Like, people bring up age at quarterback. I feel like if you're bringing up age in the draft, quarterback is like the one position where age to me matters the least. So to me, that's marginal. But if you bring in age mixed with his injury history, that's where I can understand why there would be some concern. But like, how much are the Steelers actually going to weigh his injury history into this?
Well, it's the age because of the injuries. I mean, but the plus side of how long he's played in so many different offenses, like he's seen it all. So I don't know. There's some benefit to as long as he's been around in college ball too. And interesting point brought up by Mike Renner today. I didn't agree with why he was making the statement. He has Dylan Gabriel as his QB3 in the class. And what he was talking about was just like the amount of experience that he has in the games played. He said it's more of a testament of how bad he feels about the class overall, because he only feels good about two guys. So when finding his QB3, he was just trying to find a guy that like could play in the NFL if he had to. And with how much college ball Dylan Gabriel played, he landed as his QB3. The reason I say that is because I think that could apply to Tyler Shuck too, with the amount of time that he's played. And I understand he's missed a lot of time due to injury, but he was still around and he was seeing these defenses, learning new offenses. I would lean Shuck over Howard for the Steelers if we were going quarterback. The other positions, though, I'm going through like an interest list here just to see like who's still on the board.
I think for value, there's not a lot of interest in any of the positions. Like, this is a bad spot to be in with this board. Wide receivers kind of beat. Corner and safety don't interest me right here.
But they've shown interest in, Horton, Ty Felton. Strepo makes no sense given what they currently have, but Torian Strong, wasn't he on there? Excuse me, corner out of Virginia. I think he's still available. Yeah. There's been interest there.
I think if I'm mixing both, I'd take Tyler Shuck, because he's one of the ones, if I'm taking a quarterback in this class, I like the tool set that he has. And this is another thing that I wanted to bring up too. How much do you think that over the next, like you kind of saw it like a little bit last year in the NFL, and maybe people won't attribute it to this, but they kind of play into this. Well, I'm talking about Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, and then this year's draft and maybe next year's too. Like, there's going to be a couple draft classes where, how much do you think the success that some of these quarterbacks have had, speaking of like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, and then are going to have over the next like couple years, are going to be attributed to being like these COVID players that just played a long time in college. So they just have more experience going into the league instead of these guys who the ceiling's higher, but they just didn't see the field as much as some of these other guys.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's kind of like the point that I was making about Shuck, and he was making about Dylan Gabriel, or insert name here. I think that like we're so far removed with what college football is in terms of how it translates to the NFL. Like, it is so different. Like, very few guys are running systems even close to what the NFL has to offer. You're either running like completely up tempo, where it looks like you're always in a 2-minute drill, and you still got guys that are like super old school, where they're coming over to the sidelines and getting the plays. Like, there's so few offenses that are operating under the same way that an NFL offense does. That's why it's so impressive, like what you've seen with CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels in back-to-back years, for those guys to be able to make that transition that smoothly. So yeah, I don't know. I think that there's pros and cons to being in a position like Tyler Shuck is, but you talk about like risers of the class. he's available here at this spot for us. I don't know that he's going to be in real life. Like he has the feel of a guy that like either could go in round 1 or maybe he does slip all. Maybe it is like a case of like a Malik Willis where he got this hype leading up to and then was sitting around until the 3rd round. I don't know, but I'm going to fall somewhere in the middle. I think he goes in round 2. But yeah, with what you're saying, I think that there's certainly benefit to these guys that have been there and done that for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not to say, like, obviously, a guy like Caleb Williams has a higher ceiling potentially than a guy like Bo Nix. But to me, if I'm looking at the 2 rookie seasons, I would say Bo Nix probably performed better in his first year.
Yeah.
And I think that attributes to like how much Bo Nix was in college. So that's also why I say like quarterback, if you bring up age with quarterback, like sure, obviously if the guy's younger and he can have a longer career, that's a benefit. But I feel like quarterback is just the one position, if you're going to pick any, where age really doesn't matter as much. It's not like the body's going to tear down as much at quarterback than the other ones.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so where did you go Tyler Shuck here? Based off, I think, the conversation we just had.
Mm-hmm.
And boom.
Also, I don't know exactly where he was, like number-wise, but I'm pretty sure Tyler Shuck, the first time we were doing a mock draft, which was a pre-free agency mock draft, he was like a 5th or 6th rounder in terms of like the big board. So, yeah, he's definitely been a riser.
Yeah. Yep. It'll be like he might.
Will Howard to Tennessee right there. Didn't they take Cam Ward?
Yeah.
With the first overall pick. So they
They did a Washington in 2012 with RG3 and Kirk Cousins.
Can't wait for the Will Howard. You like that?
See if it plays out the same. We'll see if it plays out the same way. All right. At this spot here, safety would make sense based off 2 of the top players in the board for me. Jonas Sanctor and Jalen Reed still on the board. Quincy Riley, they've shown interest in, corner out of Louisville. Jamari Caldwell, they've shown interest in if we want to double dip at DT. Malachi Moore, obviously he was part of that group they took to dinner at Alabama. Yeah, we're going down further than this would be like our next pick, the group that I'm starting to get into here. Just to reassess here. DT, running back, quarterback. We have not taken a receiver yet. Just out of curiosity, what's even on the board for us now? Man. Hopefully we can keep George Pickens in check. That's what I'll say. Because I think the next guy that would make sense would be Ricky White out of UNLV. He'd be the name that I'd be looking at. It wouldn't be in this spot. It'd be like maybe the next pick. So I think my short list for this spot here is Sanctor or Reed, depending on which one you feel better about at safety. Quincy Riley, the corner, and then Jamari Caldwell as a double dip at DT. That'd be my short list.
I do like Reed a lot.
Okay.
Riley, they show interest in, so that would make sense. And if they want to double dip it, I feel like double dipping at defensive line is a good possibility for the Steelers, just considering how many they have brought in this class for the top 30 visits. Like just defensive linemen, when you're considering whatever they consider a defensive tackle or a defensive lineman, they have brought in 8 players of their top 30 visits. So almost a third of their players have been on the defensive line. I feel like that's very evident that they are very interested in the position. And in this draft, they're probably going to draft 2 if they can. Because like I mentioned, a lot of the guys they were bringing in were these mid to late round guys for the top 30 visits. The only first round guy who ended up going earlier and the Steelers didn't even get to take him in this one is Derek Harmon. So we'll see how that plays out. I just think that's going to happen at some point. So it's not a bad shout. For me personally, like Jalen Reed would be my pick here. I think the Steelers could add a safety. He's the one that I like the most right here. I think he'd fit with the Steelers. And I just think that safety is going to be a position that is It's kind of similar how I've talked about defensive linemen for the last several years, where it's like a sneaky need for the Steelers. I feel like safety is a pretty similar situation right now. Defensive tackle is very evident need now, and I think that's flopped over to the safety. Is like, do they need one? Not necessarily, but are they going to draft one? I think they could.
Yeah, combine formal for him. So yeah, I think he would be in play. Like, I think that there's enough interest there to say it makes sense. Same with Sanker, though. Obviously, honestly, what was interesting? Oh, Senior Bowl meeting. So, formal with combine for Reed, Senior Bowl for Sanker. I like Reed better as a player, so I'd be between Reed and Caldwell. Double dip at DT.
For right now, because Caldwell has not been on a top 30 visit with the Steelers, I would say Reed. Oh wait, no, he has. Jamari Caldwell has been on a top 30 visit, so maybe that should be playing into this.
Was it? Oh wait, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at formal interviews when I looked there. That's where I saw Jalen Reed. Yeah, so Jalen Reed was at the combine. You're saying Jamari Caldwell actually came to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, he was a top 30 visit April 4th.
Okay. Oh yeah, and also saw him at the Senior Bowl. Okay.
I think that sways me a little bit. Yeah, I think that's just bringing in the realism factor to it. That sways me a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Before we get to our next pick,
Jalen Reed went to Washington, by the way.
Dang. So far, none of these guys I don't think are in danger of this. However, you brought up Cordell Patterson earlier. With a running back added already, I would say that he's on the chopping block. And I'm not so sure he's going to make the cut. Smitty from Around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Shout out to Keeks. And we are back up on the board as we come back. All right. So at the top of the board here, nothing strikes me. Do you have a list right by you in terms of, interest?
I only have top 30 visits up.
Okay. I'm wondering if let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, Zoff Frazier, UTSA. Okay. I saw him.
Mm-hmm.
He's still on the board here. Ricky White's there. I would probably say, I don't even know if I need a third name. I think I'd be between those two. Oh, Justin Wally. Just in for
Justin Wally they did meet with.
Mm-hmm. I know that it'd be a bit of a gamble. I would want to get Ricky White here and then hope Justin Wally's available at 185.
It's not a bad play. We talk about positions you expect the Steelers to draft. Wide receiver is still definitely a position of need for them. So you feel like at some point they got to take one.
They're not going to be able to check every box, but that's the one that got left out here. And I'm not so sure.
For sure. And considering that you're basically going to have two rookie wide receivers next year because you missed out on the entirety rookie season with Roman Wilson, I feel like you need to add at least another one. So,
yeah, and Ricky White's a guy that can contribute on special teams at the very least, and offers them somebody that can play outside. If you have Pickens or DK go down right now, Ben Skoranek would be the guy lining up out wide. I'm not sure if that's what the route they want to go. You probably still need to sign somebody, honestly, if this is the way that the draft goes. But
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think Ricky White is definitely the play. Just to get the position.
Crap. So Zoff Frazier won. He's not the name that I wanted, but I'm worried there's been a little bit of a run here. Shoot. I mean,
that's what happens when you play the game.
Look, yeah, but look how many. I mean, okay, so we pick Ricky White here from that point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 corners go. It's the same thing that happened with the receivers after we picked a running back. Like, man. All right. Well, where do we pivot to? Man.
We've already double dipped at defensive tackle.
Upton Stout out of Western Kentucky. Smaller dude. Is he too redundant? Does he not make sense? With Beanie Bishop on the roster. They've shown interest. So man.
I feel like you're going too far down.
Yeah. Not a great board for us.
No.
The value, honestly, like if we wouldn't have taken a quarterback earlier, Kyle McCord, the value here is pretty solid. But
I mean, could they take an offensive lineman here? I don't know about position, but I guess if you're just like throwing a dart at somebody and you can't decide, there's no clear like player of need that's a best player available. I feel like offensive line could be good use here.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think they've brought in. I mean, Charles Grant was the only combine formal among offensive line. I don't know that they've had a single one visit.
They haven't.
So,
but I mean, when you're talking about what are we in the 6th round?
Yeah,
I feel like your top 30 visits are probably getting pretty thin at this point.
Hey, 5 of 7 though last year. Like there were still those guys that they were bringing in. They still.
That's true.
So what positions have we? We got a DT running back. So we didn't go with we don't have a defensive back at all drafted yet. So let me look at the defensive backs that they've shown interest in here. And go a little bit further down.
It feels bad. I guess that's what happens when you wait. You miss on your guys.
Hunter Wooler.
I don't believe there's anybody that is a top 30 visit that is left on the board for the Steelers that is a defensive back.
Okay.
They only brought in 4. One of those was Nick Amenwari, and then Zerai Thomas, Trey Amos, and Justin Wally.
Yeah, there's like some Senior Bowl guys that they've met with here at corner or at safety. Upton Stout would be my pick here.
I'm fine with it because I have a tough time really picking a position that they should really go with here.
Mm-hmm.
The only position I think I'd probably look for on the offensive line is like maybe a guard, but at this point I feel like you're not even bringing anybody that's going to be a realistic option for the roster. So
yeah,
at least Upton Stout maybe.
Hey, and they brought back Max Sharping today, guard. So
yeah. So with this last pick, before we even get to the board, I feel like I'm staying true to what I am looking for with this pick. And I'm trying to look to see if he's been taken or not.
My guy just got taken. I was going to make a case for Nick Martin. linebacker. I always take him in the 7th round.
See, there's a guy that I always take in the 7th round for the Steelers, and that is Gavin Bartholomew. Just because he is a local guy, Pitt player, they know him well, and I think that adding a third tight end, or I guess not technically a third tight end, it'd technically be a 4th tight end, but with Hayward, I mean, whether you want to classify him as tight end, whether you want to add competition for him on the roster, I feel like adding a tight end would make sense for the Steelers. Adding Gavin Bartholomew, who had a solid career at Pitt, I think that would make a ton of sense for the Steelers just to take in the local guy. So for me, that's where I always go in the 7th round. Like, and to me, that just like feels like a Steeler pick is taking him. But I'm open to looking at what's available as well.
So we didn't take a safety because we took a corner. So Craig Woodson out of Cal, they've shown interest in. So that's the only other name that I'll throw in there. I would be okay with Gavin Bartholomew. I'd say it'd be between those two.
Well, I mean, what is the interest in Craig Woodson? Like, did they meet with him at the combine?
Craig Woodson was, what is that one? Oh, no, it was at the East-West Shrine Bowl interviewed.
Okay. So he's what, I guess it wasn't technically a top 30 visit because he's a local visit, but
yeah,
same thing. But Gavin Bartholomew was a local visit for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm. Sure was. All right. Yeah, we'll go Bartholomew.
I think some competition for Connor Hayward makes sense.
If Craig Woodson doesn't get drafted, I'm saying that
Tyler Batty's a Cowboy. Tyler Batty is a Cowboy.
Along with
Sorry.
Shador.
Just love seeing BYU guys get drafted.
Okay. All right. We're signing Craig Woodson as an undrafted free agent.
There we go.
Add him to this haul. All right. So to wrap it up here, Kenneth Grant, after a trade down, we pick up pick 51, trading down to 31. So 31 and 51, 421. And we get Kenneth Grant and O'Marion Hampton out of that trade back. Really like that. But I'll be honest, from that point on, like that's where I stopped loving the picks. Like it was more so.
I think this got like derailed, especially after the 3rd round. Once we got to the 4th round, I feel like we were just kind of off the rails and just kind of scrambling, honestly, to find a pick that we felt really good about.
Yeah, like I liked the players, quite a bit throughout here, but like either don't love the value or I feel like we got sniped. 2 different times we had crazy runs on positions happen right after we took it. Like we debated taking a player and then said, we like this amount of players until our next pick. And there was just a crazy run on receivers after we take Hampton. So we didn't get one at 83. And then a crazy run on cornerbacks after we take a defensive tackle. After we take a receiver, Ricky White. So it is what it is, but this is the draft haul. Again, Kenneth Grant, O'Marion Hampton, Tyler Shuck, Jamari Caldwell, Ricky White, Upton Stout, Gavin Bartholomew. Honestly, some names here are ones I've gotten quite a bit. But Hampton at 51 is just insane value, and I think would probably do well grading the draft just based off that one pick. Maybe we're giving a little bit of that back by taking a quarterback at 83 with Tyler Shuck. I don't know. But again, like value-wise, I think that people probably feel like that's value too with where he's being propped up all of a sudden. So I don't know. Don't feel bad about it, but it's certainly not something that like after round 2, I'd be super excited about if this is the way it turned out.
Yeah, I think as far as if you're grading Omar Khan drafts, this would be the one that I'd look at the most where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it because of how well the first 2 seemingly have turned out for the most part, at least. So after the first couple rounds, this one, it would be kind of a lot of wait and see until the actual season happens. But this would be interesting. This was taking into account both what we would want to do and with what the Steelers have actually shown interest in. So there is some realism to what just happened. Now, obviously, the board almost guaranteed did not play out the way it did in that mock draft, but there's at least the Steelers have shown interest in almost every name that we did draft. So there's a possibility that some of those names.
You mentioned got off the rails in round 4. Really got off the rails when Shedeur Sanders got picked at 12 to the Dallas Cowboys.
That's actually true. That's actually true. And then if I really want to be realistic about the picks, it got off the rails after Omarion Hampton was picked at 51 because he's not going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He's not going to be there, but you know who will be there for you? Marcelo Electric, whenever you need him. Logo right above Tyler right now. Our friend Boots, a.k.a. Brandon Marcelo, a.k.a. Boots. You know what? It's almost like I want his actual name to be Boots. Like, that's his real name. His nickname is Brandon Marcelo. Not really. But you can hit up Boots. Marcelo Electric, serving Beaver, Allegheny, Lawrence, and Butler County. Hit him up, 724-614-0611. Again, that's 724-614-0611. The link to his Facebook page in the description of the show. Go to his page. All his contact information is there, along with pictures of work that he's done, give you some examples of stuff that he's able to do. But whether it's commercial, residential, service calls, schedule him. He'll get out to you. Great service. Again, that's Marcelo Electric. So hit him up. The link is in the description of the show, along with all of our other sponsors. Game Changers, Keats Barbershop. At Game Changers, save yourself $10 when you use code AT412 at checkout. And, I know I mentioned Shedeur might not be a game changer, but he does have a few designs over on Game Changers. And I will surely be getting one of those from his time at Colorado if he becomes the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. Just saying. Even though it's not necessarily like my ideal 1A scenario, I'd be cool with it, and I would certainly buy in, risks up, if we get Shedeur Sanders. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit us in the comments with your thoughts on how this mock draft turned out. Tune in. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you can tune in on draft night. We will be here night 1 and night 2 in some capacity. We'll see exactly who all was part of that, but me, Tyler, friends will be around for draft weekend for sure. The mock draft that we're doing with some of our friends, Jake and Richie, if you are familiar. And then I don't know if Nate's even responded since we added him back into the group. Either way, there'll be 4 or 5 of us here for that mock draft of the entire first round. And we're really excited about doing that every single year. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search around the 412 and then do the same thing on all of our social media platforms. You'll find us there as well. Until next time, for Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll talk to you next time.